let's be extremely clear about this. I know people have said before that it's not useful to call Trump supporters fascists, but the minute that the man made it clear that he wanted to retain power regardless of the outcome of the election, made it clear that he didn't care about the democratic process, and anybody, especially after he started taking active steps after the election was over to try and undo the election, anybody who still supported him and still supports him now after this bullshit at Capitol Hill is a fascist, whether they admit to it or not. Because if they actually cared about democracy, they wouldn't be able to just hand wave the obvious fact that he didn't win the election. Okay? I don't care if, oh, but there's so many of them. How could you say this about, your fellow Americans? This is so divisive. I don't care that it's divisive. I am telling you, you have fascists in your midst. They'll probably never admit to it because they've deluded themselves into thinking that fascism and democracy are like the same thing, which is quite the mental gymnastics, but a lot of them have managed to do it. They are fascists, and how we deal with them is an open question, because at this point I don't think there's any reasoning with most of these fuckers. I mean, can they ever be talked down? I don't know. We know that there's always some subset of a population that has autocratic tendencies. They're just inherently bootlickers. Those people always exist. They'll probably never go away because it's evolutionarily selected for. The question is, now that we know who they are and that they feel they can openly try to gain power, what the hell do we do about them? Because their existence sort of brings up the whole can we tolerate intolerance sort of thing. I want to say the Germans are right about this, as in we won't allow anti-democratic parties, anti-democratic elements to exist within our political system. The problem is, can you really trust the U.S. government to decide who is and isn't democratic? Because here's the problem. Anything you give the U.S. government the power to do, you always, and I mean always, must keep in your mind, what will the Republicans do with this power? Because it might be pretty bad. I don't think this is something you can get around with any kind of diktat. I don't think this is anything you can get around with active suppression. I don't even think that the social media crackdown that's going on right now is particularly helpful. To be completely honest, it's just virtue signaling by a bunch of billionaires who think that it makes them look good. Honestly, suppressing this minority requires active measures from the rest of us. If you want to keep them down, you have to remind people they're there, whether they admit it or not. There are fascists in your midst, and you must, when the time comes, i.e. elections, and in between that messaging activities, keep the pressure on the people around you to side against them. Make sure they do not attain power, because if they do, you might just be fucked. And that sounds like, oh my god, that's like a constant struggle. It sounds like it'll never end. But the truth is that it's always been that way. It's just that a lot of Americans were deluded into thinking that there weren't fascists in their midst, that just everybody, or almost everybody, to the point that the people who didn't agree were irrelevant, always agreed that democracy was the way and we didn't have to worry about fucking clown car insurrectionists in fucking buffalo skins. But that was never true, and I hope people realize that now. You have to treat this the same way the cops treat crime. You'll never win. It's not something you can ever get rid of. It's something that most people consider to be something bad that we need to get rid of, but we can't actually get rid of. So the best you can do is suppress, prevent it from making too big of an impact on people's lives. That's how you have to treat this. But this is also a collective action problem, and whether we can maintain that vigilance remains to be seen. I keep saying we. Fuck do I mean we? I'm not even American.